Welcome YouTube, Pocky here again, and I wanted to do a tavern talk on dragons and what's wrong with them, their design right now, why they're weak, and how to fix them, and what I'd like to see in the future from one of the iconic tribes of Battlegrounds. So the big thing with dragons right now is you have to look at their end game, and the issues with their end game primarily rests in the fact that Kalecgos is mostly the only viable form of scaling. We haven't seen single Kalecgos be viable scaling in a long time. We've needed to rely on hitting 2 Kalecgoses, and that's why it's been a while since we've seen pure dragons really be very strong. Razorgore is a little bit slow. That's one of the minions that can actually get to the size that it needs to be to kill things. And the other is Chromawing, right? Everything else is either utility or not gonna scale without the help of something like Kalecgos. And we determined that Kalecgos is in a point where it's not enough scaling as you compare it to other tribes. Part of the reason it doesn't have enough scaling is because you don't have enough econ generation in the tribe, right? So other tribes either have something that's econ generation to provide scaling, something like Hogger, where you're getting free minions and you're buffing with Salty Looters, Peggies, Strong Arms, and other tribes like the new Naga are getting free scaling through the generation of spellcraft spells. They're not limited as much by resources and cycling. Something like Darkgate's Elder also is able to buy anything, right? It's not limited to just a few minions to cycle like dragons are with battle cries, and battle cries are generally expensive, so unless you're a hero like Millhouse or Gallywigs, cycling stuff that costs 3 gold is very expensive, and you're limited by your gold cap. All that together with the fact that you have very few minions on the mid-range of dragons to bolster you means that dragons aren't very strong. One of the things that you could do is look at buffing Razorgore so it's stronger and able to compete, and so that dragons actually have multiple forms of scaling. We see this and have seen it in the past where tribes had multiple ways to scale, usually 1 on 6, usually 1 on 5. Razorgore is supposed to be one of those tier 5 scaling units, but its scaling is too weak right now because it's hard to pair it and build stuff and have it scale in time compared to other tribes. Chromawing is inherently a weird minion because you have to buff it at a low tier for it to get strong enough, and when that's one of your only units that can get there, that makes things very difficult. Our other tier 1 dragon is also another problem, because that means that if we're saying that Chromawing is a thing that we need early on to play into dragons, and we need to decide on that direction early, Red Whelp is a problem. Red Whelp does inherently play into the theme of having a lot of dragons on board, but it's not strong enough and it doesn't provide scaling. And one of the big things is that it's not econ on 1. Red Whelp is one of the weakest units in the game, if not the weakest unit in the game. If you look at the top 20% range of minions on HS Replay, Red Whelp doesn't even show up because it's not picked enough. It's not even picked 1% on turn 1. That is a terrible pick rate when sometimes you get 3 in a shop and you have to pick it. That's about the only time that you would pick it. I would love a rework to Red Whelp or a new dragon on tier 1. This is actually an idea that Dog proposed, where you get a coin in 2 turns. What this means is that it plays into the idea of getting some econ, but it forces you into grabbing that and making the decision to either level or stay down right away, because you don't get that coin to do other stuff earlier. It also changes when you're cycling stuff. It can be a battle cry for you to get later on, and it can be some econ. It can be a dragon that you end on your board. It's kind of cool in that way, and it would be nice. And yeah, it kind of plays into the idea of leveling, which you do want to do with dragons. Outside of that, I think there needs to be some changes and reworks to the middle tier of dragons, right? So Twilight Emissary, Draconid Operative, Bronze Warden, all of these are sort of lacking. Kalecgos doesn't really get a lot of buffs from anything besides Promo Drake. So you have these sets of dragons that all require a bunch of other things to be pieced together. But generally, when you have builds like that, where you need a lot of pieces, you know, Exodia comps, something like Eliza Exodia, or, you know, the Benevolent Leapers, you're getting exponential scaling. And we don't really see that with dragons, right? It's more multiplicative, where you have a certain number on board and that's your scaling. With dragons, with that mid-game stuff, with Razor Gore, Promo Drake, and Kalecgos, it's very reliant on having a certain number of dragons on board, and you're not getting that exponential scaling. It's more multiplicative based on, you know, having 5 or 6 dragons on board, and that's not fast enough as the game exists right now. So something I'd like to see is some sort of maybe mid-game scaling to get things to the point that they're big enough. Some reworks to Kalecgos, perhaps, where it gets stronger, as well as an addition of another battle cry in the form of Red Whelp, so that there's more battle cries in the pool for Kalecgos, and some econ so that they get a little bit more consistent in that regard. Dragons have great utility in Nadina and Presters right now, and unfortunately they're just not able to make the most of it because they don't have the scaling efficiency that they need to compete with the strongest tribes in the meta right now. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and like this video for more content in the future. And be sure to check me out at Twitch TV/PockyPlays. Thanks for watching. As always, peace.